It's the last stream of 2024, and that one is always a fun one. Welcome to the Making Awesome podcast. What episode is this? 168? Yeah, 168. That sounds about right. Yeah. It's always fun, and apparently I accidentally streamed to the wrong thing. So hopefully people didn't end up in that wrong stream. Oh well. Welcome to last stream of the year. We're going to be going through some fun stuff today. We're going to be talking about excuse me, my predictions that I had in 2023, how they played out, and my predictions for 2024 and how I believe this industry is going to change. I want to thank everyone for showing up. Got some awesome people here hanging out. I see Max is here, Russ is here. We got Thomas, and Amber is here as well. Thank you all for showing up. Sorry if you clicked the wrong link. That's my fault. I clicked to go live to the wrong location, and that happens from time to time. I see Aaron is here. New Model Workshop is here. And yes, technically, it is 2024 already. I guess Ben, it's 2024 already for Ben, one of our Aussie fans. I guess most of our Aussie fans, it's already 2024, so hope people are doing good. Anyways, let's kind of go through and talk about what I thought was going to happen this year. Because I wasn't perfect. I was a lot closer than I expect, right? When you're attempting to predict market trends, right? You can do an okay job, right? It's pretty easy to do an okay job. It is a little difficult to get it dead on. And I think for me, really, the big thing was just companies coming out of nowhere, right? Some of them not really doing what I expected, right? So, in 2023, we had predicted about a price versus value, and that printer prices were going to drop a little bit, but their value was going to go through the roof. And yeah, pretty much, I was right there, right? We saw a lot of companies dropping prices considerably, but they also added features. We saw 2023 be the year of Clipper, right? Or really, we should probably say the year of input shaping, but the year of Clipper to me makes a little bit more sense overall. So year of Clipper, if you will. And that means that customers who are looking to either buy their first 3D printer or get more 3D printers had a lot of options at price points that just didn't have a lot of decent options prior. And I like that. That's a good thing for consumers. Now, certainly, there were some fun issues with that where companies who were using Clipper would fork it, and then they would not update it. And yeah, I mean, that's the way it was with Marlin too. When companies were using Marlin more often, we saw the same problem where they were forking it or they were doing their own Marlin instance, and they weren't providing updates as Marlin itself, as mainline Marlin, would update. And that effectively started to produce pain in this industry. But thankfully, Clipper and Marlin, for that fact, are both open source, and the community has been able to quickly make adjustments to fit their needs. We predicted about Bamboo and their value to the community, and boy, we did not see all the machines that Bamboo was going to be releasing this year. I mean, Bamboo released 3 machines? Yeah, they've released, right? No, technically the P1S was released this year, right? I think so. So I think they released 4 machines this year. With the X1E, the P1S, the A1 Mini, and now most recently the A1. And Bamboo has been on an absolute move for product development, right? Moving that fast is quite frankly, in my opinion, quite dangerous. But hey, whatever. Uh, that's what their customers want, and they have securely, fastened themselves in this industry. So we'll be curious to see what that looks like long term. But for right now, Bamboo dropped a ton of printers this year. We talked about price trends in that I think customers are going to pay more money for machines because they want the value, and Bamboo has shown that, right? We're seeing the days of the cheap Enders. They're still around, and in fact, Creality has the Ender 3 V3 SE and KE, which is their clipperized SE, what we learned last week. And while those machines are still cheap, we're seeing a lot of people spend the extra money to go to something with a lot more value. Now, does it have more value? That one's up to you, right? You have to decide what value looks like for you. For me, having the machine be open and accessible is more important to me than having everything look like, a polished, unit, like an appliance. And I get that for some people, that is the exact opposite of what they want. They want something that is the Apple of 3D printers, and, well, it's what Bamboo is pushing towards. We talked about materials in that we thought that we were going to see a lot of new moves on materials, and that prices probably wouldn't come down a bunch, but we're going to see a lot more companies entering the market. And in fact, I don't know if that was even remotely close to being accurate. Prices did stay roughly the same. We do see prices go on sale quite a bit these days, but I don't think we saw a lot of new filament manufacturers come online. In fact, we saw more consolidation, in my opinion, as Polymaker has grown considerably in the past year. Polymaker is doing pretty much all the filament for Inland and Overture. Or so he says, but just look at the spools and tell me I'm wrong. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of value to the filament. I expected more companies and I expected more exotic materials to come out. And I don't think that we saw any major exotic materials hit the market. So there's that at least, right? But I guess, we did have these rapid PLAs and these rapid PETGs. We had these rapid materials that are designed to be printed on high-speed printers because we found a lot of value in this industry for high-speed 3D printing. So there's that. And I will say that with input shaping, I am using the Mark III's behind me less and less. Now, the other problem is that a lot of the work that we do is currently under NDA, and because we have a nicer camera now, it is enough that you guys can actually figure out what is printing behind me, so I can't always be running those machines simply because of NDAs, and it sucks, but I don't really have anything to replace it with at the moment. We are going to be shifting. I don't know if we're going to be shifting the printers in my specific background, but we're going to be shifting printers on the sets and all that. And we're going to move toward a more business-focused channel. We're going to talk about that toward the end. I talked about 3D scanning for the masses and that Polycam would be a huge thing for people. And I don't know if I hit it. I don't know if I was even close to being right on that one. 3D scanning, like the Reba Point Morocco came out, and while I don't have one in Reba Point, you should send me one, damn it, because I have an Artec Leo, and I think it would be really cool to compare a $1,500 to $2,000 scanner up against a $34,500 3D scanner and see how good the Morocco actually is when you compare it against pretty much the only other fully self-contained 3D printer on the market. Or, not 3D printer, 3D scanner. What's wrong with me? So, yeah, I guess I expected Polycam to be a lot more prevalent, but we didn't see Android phones adopt the time of flight sensors or any of the sensors that we have on the iPhones that enable Polycam to work as well as it does on iOS devices. So there's that. I am hoping that we get better 3D scanning in the next year. We're going to talk about that because that's part of my predictions for 24. But, I wasn't right. And that sucks. I would have loved to see more affordable 3D scanners. As much as I love Ardtech as a company, they are very expensive, right? My software is $1,200 a year to run the scanners that are like $20,000+ each. So it's very expensive, and it means that the average consumer can't get into it. Now, that's okay. Like, from a business standpoint, I don't care. I'm happy that the average consumer can't get in. But from a specific, like, use, I would like to see more affordable 3D scanners, because I think that it gives the average user an ability to understand the value of the really nice ones. We had about data privacy and education. We were hoping to launch our education platform this year called the Making Awesome Academy. That has not happened. In fact, I have barely started filming for it. Life has a great way of taking you down different paths than what you were expecting. And I do still believe that education is still our greatest problem that we have in this industry. As for data privacy, I predicted that people were either going to care or not care, and unfortunately, they don't care, and they should. And it's truly ridiculous to me that consumers don't care about their own data. But that's fine. We're going to be talking way more about that in Q1 of 2024 as we get to be releasing some stuff that people have been asking for. And no, we're not going to be talking about it here. So, those are my predictions that I at least had written down. I'm sure I said more in that video, but those were at least the predictions that I had written down for 2023. And I think overall, we hit like a solid 80-85%, right? I think we did pretty good. 24 has somewhat of the same. I think we're still going to be pushing these clipperized machines. I think we're going to see that 2024 is the year of multicolor and or multi-material 3D printing, right? As companies see that people really like multicolor printing, I think that they're going to push for making their own AMS clones. I see this happening. I don't know when it's going to be happening, but I see it happening. We see Frozen has their own version. I think Anycubic just teased theirs. I believe that Creality has teased theirs as well. Don't quote me on those. I know I've seen more than just the Frozen. So I believe we're going to be seeing more of that. Because when we look at what the Bambu clones are doing, they're doing a lot of what Bambu is doing, except the multicolor. And the multicolor is part of the reason that people go with Bambu in the first place. And because the Voron project is the Voron project, and open source is open source, and as Chris Catlett says, an open AMS will be released in the near future as well. I'm for this, and I think that that will move this industry forward, but I think we're really going to have to look at our waste production in a more meaningful way. As machines with single extruders, you have a fair bit of purge material that, you know, for Bambus, we always call it poop. Pretty much everybody calls it poop because it comes out of the back of the machine. And that is a lot of waste that is not generally recyclable, no matter where you go for that kind of thing. And I hope that we push a little more green initiatives in this community. And while additive manufacturing produces significantly less waste than traditional subtractive manufacturing like CNC milling, it doesn't have the same recycling chain as, you know, subtractive does. And so that means that a lot of the material and the waste that comes out of 3D printing does not end up in recycling facilities and instead ends up in landfills. And I do not want to see that at all. Also, I saw Tommy was here. Hi, Tommy. How you doing, buddy? Hope you're having a... Oh, what? It's got to be... it's like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Nice. For you. Chris Hogan says, oh God, please, Prusa, give us an update on the MMU3 and Mark IV. Based on what we saw at Prusa Research, by the way, Scotty from Strange Parts released a video touring Prusa Research. We have not watched it yet. In fact, we're going to be watching it when this podcast is over in our private Discord server. So if that's something you want to join, $10 tier or higher, uh, in the links below. I think they're below me at this point. But $10 tier or higher, we're going to be watching that thing live after the podcast and going through it, because I don't know how many people know this, but before Smurf, we went to Prusa Research and we did a very in-depth tour. So I'm curious to see what Scotty filmed versus what we filmed, as well as what Scotty missed that I would have loved to have him show. So I'm sure that Scotty did an amazing job. Scotty's an amazing, amazing filmmaker. I don't know if he does his own editing, but whoever his editor is, if it's him or somebody else, does great work as well. So I'm here for it. I'm here for it. So yeah, we'll be talking about that in the Discord afterwards. But yeah, I can tell you that it's coming. That's all that I can tell you regarding Prusa. Dino says, unfortunately, the poop is nothing compared to the dispersion or other resins in industrial manufacturing. 3D printing by itself is a huge saver of discarded parts and appliances. I do agree. I do. And where you can take a 3D printed part and save an appliance, and that has a lot of value to it, yes, there's good there. But we're not perfect, right? The big push from plastic to cardboard spools, I think, happened very much in 2023. And I think more companies are moving toward the cardboard spools because, hey, they're recyclable. I think it's going to take kind of another wake-up video. I think was it Out of Darts that did the wake-up video for the spools? But I think it's going to take another wake-up video for people to realize that, hey, we got to be careful here. We got to be careful here. I would like to see more AMS-style machines. But I am worried that with software getting as good as it has, that 3D printing is going to lose a lot of its value. Because all of the sudden, companies will have access to it without understanding everything that goes into it. This is, again, where the education problem for me comes in. Let's say a company buys a, I don't know, pick your poison, a Cheedy X Max 3, right? To not pick on Prusa or Bamboo, let's choose a Cheedy X Max 3. It runs, they like it, it works, then all of a sudden it doesn't. Nobody there understands the slicer, because all they do is just click slice and print. Nobody there understands how to fix the machine, and so it becomes a paperweight. I believe that with proper education, we can solve a lot of those problems, but at the same time, provide the value to the service businesses that still exist, mine included, right? We see a lot of ebb and flow when it comes with service here with 3D Musketeers, right? The parts that we make for people. Some months we need 50 more machines. Some months we need like 3 machines total. And that has a lot to do with how 3D printing is moving more toward a commodity and something that is in everybody's home than it is a product that has a lot of extra value. I mean, case in point, a lady dropped off a M from an M&M clock that she has, not Marshall Mathers, but the Mars and Mounds company. Is that the correct order for that? Either way, bomb spaghetti and such. This part she wants reproduced because she only has one of them. She needs the other M for the clock, and the new clock is like $75. And I told her, look, it's going to be like $50 to $75. She's like, well, I can get a new clock for close to that. I said, then get a new clock. Well, no, I'd rather just fix mine. I said, well, then give me the part and I'll fix it for you. But there's time involved here. And I think if we don't look at the design process for 3D printing and what it takes to get to that design process, we're still going to have that education gap that we oh so really need to fill. Zerno said, did I ask ChatGPT what 3D printing will look like in 2024? I didn't. I probably should. Let me see. Let's see. Let's see what Chat GPT says. I always forget how the hell to do this. There it is. Chat GPT says that this, and I'm going to read it verbatim just so you guys can have some fun here. As of last update in April 2023, the trends and predictions for 3D printing in 2024 can be outlined based on the advancements and directions observed until that time. Here are some key aspects that might characterize 3D printing in 2024. Increased material variety, improved printing speed and quality, advancements in bioprinting, greater customization and complexity, sustainability focus, wider adoption in construction and manufacturing, integration with AI and ML, that's machine learning, expansion in education and research, more accessible consumer 3D printers, and regulatory developments. That's hilarious because, yeah, that's a lot of my list, and I did not use... Sometimes I will actually use ChatGPT to help me write the notes for these because, like, sometimes it's good to validate that I'm on the right direction. Like, you know, if there's a business-focused one where we wanted to talk about patents and trademarks, I will make certain that I kind of have an idea of what I'm looking at by asking ChatGPT first. That's just funny that it was closer than I expected, so I'm here for it. I am here for it. So, all right. I would love to see more cheap 3D scanners. I don't think it's going to happen. And I think we're still dealing with the same problem with 3D scanning that we've had, well, really since 3D scanning kind of started, which is the software sucks, right? My scanners from Artec are so expensive because Artec is a software company that happens to also do some hardware, right? RevoPoint is a hardware company that also does some software. And the big problem with scanners is that all you can really do is produce an OBJ file, right? You'll go scan something, you get an OBJ file, and that's it. You're done. You can't do anything else. And if you wanted to convert it to surfaces and solids, like a parametric step file or something like that, it requires a lot of extra effort, time, and energy. And the average consumer will not do that. We're seeing 3D scanners, like the actual hardware, really, really improve. That's what I would like to see. But the software is not improving anywhere remotely as close to the hardware. And because we have, you know, scanners in that kind of sub $2,000 range that are accessible to consumers that are looking for scanners, I think when they try it and they realize they have issues, they're just going to end up paying for nicer scanners or paying for service companies with scanners. My prediction is that we're going to see 3D scanning pop up a lot more often in 2024. But because of the issues with software, I think we're going to see a market adoption be limited, right? If you are making great hardware, but your software is bad, that gets out very quickly. And RevoPoint, as much as I love you guys, you make some amazing hardware. The software for RevoPoint has always been lacking. The fact that I can use a 5-year-old laptop with my Artec Studio software, but I can't use that same 5-year-old laptop with RevoPoint software because it needs so much more RAM than my PC has, and I have 32 gigs of RAM. That is a problem. And so I think we need to see a focus more on software side than we do the hardware side. I think we're pretty good on the hardware at the moment. I want to see companies push more software because that's pretty much how you start to dethrone these bigger 3D scanner companies like Artec and Creaform and Surphaser and Steinbichler. You dethrone them by producing software that is better than them, and then you go back, or, at the same time, are producing hardware that puts them to shame. Because for all accounts, the Riva Point Morocco should come damn close to my Artec Leo. Like, way closer than most people would want it to get. But because Revo Point software is much more difficult to use and is much more complicated to use, it will fail to hit the market adoption that Artec has seen. Now, Artec has also been around a lot longer, so there's that. But in my opinion, if we don't see a shift in software development and a push for software development, that will significantly reduce the impact that 3D scanning can have on the community as a whole. Also, speaking of community as a whole, we have like 80 people here, 31 likes. Like the video if you haven't subscribed, if you haven't done that as well. Neither of those things cost you anything but a millisecond of your time and helps our channel grow. We just passed 39,000 subscribers, which is cool to hit. We hit a big number right on the last day of the year, so I'm totally here for it. Thank you for that. So thank you guys for all your support in that regard. But I believe we're going to see more scanners like the Riva Point Morocco, these all-in-one scanners. But I don't know. I thought Creality was going to be doing a fair bit of work with 3D scanners, and they just haven't. So I don't know what they're doing. I don't even know if Creality 100% knows what they're doing. Honestly, Creality's a bit of a wild card for me. They came out with scanners. We thought they were pushing into that. Then they just weren't. And now they're back on cheap enders. But I thought they were moving away from the cheap enders and moving into like the K1 and the K1 Max style printers. And they weren't. Creality just simply says, we can do it all. And companies that say we can do it all worry me so much. Because when you say that you can do it all, you don't do any of it quite well. When you say you can do a couple of things, chances are you might do it pretty well. And yes, they did rebrand in green, of course, because that's the new cool color to be these days, I guess. More connected hardware. I don't like this. I think it's a bad move. I think consumers are really making a mistake here, and they're not going to realize it until it's too late. Connected 3D printers are a problem. And I really caution any of you leaving your printers online. I do. There's just, it's not safe. It's just not safe. And I think we're going to see more printers come out that are connected, right? They need an internet connection, whether that internet connection is used to update, or that's the only way to send files, or they can only, like the AnkerMech M5C, which we're supposed to be taking a look at some point. I do have one. We'll be looking at it in Q1. The M5C has no screen. You have to use like a phone, or it will just print the first thing on the SD card or the USB thumbstick thing that it has. I think we're going to see more printers like that. As companies realize that consumers don't care about data collection, which I still have a problem with, but I'm going to try my best to move past it. But as companies see that consumers don't have an issue with data collection, they're going to push more machines that have data collection, or at least minimally always on connections. Because to the consumer, their ability to open their phone, click print, and then their little magic box makes something for them, that has a lot of value to a consumer, because the consumer doesn't realize what they're giving away to do that kind of thing. And while, sure, if you get a machine that has mainline Clipper, or you can put mainline Clipper on it, or mainline Marlin, you can do that stuff yourself. You can set up your own private VLAN. You can produce a mainline Clipper or something like that, where you know it's not collecting data because you built it yourself, and you're now able to, have it on your network as long as it's secured, I'm fine with that. Right? Right? Um uh Oh, cool. We have to mute somebody. That's cool. Oh, that's a 24-hour timeout. Once we see companies moving more into printers as commodities, which we have, by the way, we've seen that shift this year from 3D printers into, 3D printers away from this kit, like Voron and Prusa kit style, into out of box, put on shelf, start printing level of experience. That's when we're moving into commodity. And I think it was Dennis from Thangs, who we spoke with, the CFO of Thangs, who said that as soon as Anchor got into 3D printing, that was the mark of us moving into commodity. Because he said Anchor is not going to get into doing that stuff unless they see money. Anchor's never done 3D printing before. The M5 was their first ever 3D printer. And while it did get absolutely beat on by Bamboo in Kickstarter, and honestly, Bamboo is the reason that the M5 likely didn't have much better adoption than it did. Now, the M5 is not an amazing printer in my opinion. They're not bad printers, but they're not amazing printers. But they're V-wheels, right? They're V-wheel bed slingers. And for the price, you can go get a Sovol SV07, two of them, I think, that will be more functional than the Anchor make. Not the Anchor make is a bad product. It just shows that the industry is moving more toward a commodity than it is moving toward a hobby, right? It's no longer like needing to go use some chisels to build something out of wood. It is now something that is way more functional to the average person. Dum Dum Dev is asking if I think Prushas will move to more pro machines. It feels like they are not even trying to counteract Bamboo at all. That's an interesting one. And I've already identified at least a couple Prusa staff in this chat, so that's a fun one. Prusa, I think, is moving more toward the pro market. And yeah, I think they're moving more toward the pro market. And I think that's the best way to describe it. Let's be real here, kids. Where's the money in business? The money in business is not in B2C. That's business to consumer. It's in B2B. I can't talk a lot about what we saw at Prusa because I don't know what we can and cannot discuss yet. We will soon, once we get into editing the videos and we provide videos to Prusa to verify that we're not showing anything that we shouldn't be showing. That's when I'll be able to speak more openly about what we saw. But the money to me is not in B2C. It's in B2B. And while, yes, if Bamboo wants to put a printer into every household in America, great. But once you put a printer into the household of every person in America, that's it. Most households aren't going to get more than one machine. Most businesses are. And, well, yeah, Prusa's not going to be competing on price. They're not. If you saw Scotty's video, I've been hearing some criticism, and it's interesting because I don't think it's invalid criticism, but Prusa has a lot of inefficiencies, and those inefficiencies come in because of the people. They're not automating their processes; they're still employing people. But that means they're still employing people, and they're not just going to a fully automated process. And I say, yeah, that means your product is going to cost more, right? That means it's going to cost more. But it also means that it has more care put into it, right? There's that human element, which from time to time can result in a problem. But that human element means that there's more care, right? That the Prusa becomes more of a, let's go with, I don't know if higher end's the right word, but it will have a higher perceived value. If people are going to be bothering with price points anyways, they likely weren't shopping with Prusa in the first place. With B2B, with businesses, right? Businesses like mine, we chose Prusa to be the company that we kind of standardized around because of the service. You can put out a very middle of the road machine, have amazing service, and win versus the company that's putting out a Ferrari with Ferrari level service, which for those that don't know is not great. It's also very expensive. Prusa is known for doing one thing really, really well. They have the best customer support in the industry, and I don't think that any company that produces 3D printers would ever argue that Prusa does not have the best customer support. And the reality of it is that the average consumer doesn't really see a lot of value in that. They don't care. Because they're going to email, they're going to get a part, and then they're going to move on. The average business, however, they do. Because downtime equals loss of money. Loss of money equals that machine costing the company more than it makes. That's the last thing that you want. There is a lot coming out of Prusa Pro, and I think you guys should keep your eyes on Prusa Pro, and that's all that I can say about that. And we did just see the HT90. That machine is super cool. Super, 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 super cool. Anyways. The New Model Workshop is saying that they'd love to see more advanced features appearing at consumer-level prices. Even if prosumer, continuous production capabilities such as self-changing build plates would be amazing. Well, I mean, there's AFS from Prusa. They're pretty much the only ones. I guess there's the Mosaic. Mosaic has something like that too, don't they? I know that Formlabs just started something like that. We do see some of it, but yeah, I mean, you're talking 80 to 100 grand just to play. Just to play, right? I think belt printers would be a great way to see that. But a belt printer with clipper just sounds very dangerous. And currently the belt printers are so slow because they're not running clipper. They're running, or input, I should say they're running input shaping. Forgive me if I say clipper when very clearly I mean input shaping. Because I unfortunately have made those two things one in my brain, and that's bad. So I'm trying to kick that bad habit. So if I say it, and I very obviously mean input shaping, I'm sorry. But I think the big thing for me was that clipper was the first one to do it. So they're the ones in my head that I associate with input shaping. Sorry. But yeah, I think a belt printer with input shaping would be freaking weird. It's weird. But as DumDumDev says, businesses don't watch YouTube for a fix or join communities to hang out. They don't do that. You're right, they don't. People that work in those companies do, but the big business itself doesn't. It just doesn't. I would like to see, and I agree, more automation would be nice, but I don't think it's going to come out on the consumer level because the average consumer doesn't need automation with their 3D printing. I believe that the average consumer just wants to click, print, go. They don't want any BS. Heck, if they don't have to touch a slicer, they're happy. And that's where like the print directly from Maker World has a lot of value to the average consumer. Prusa has something similar, but it will download directly in a Prusa slicer, which is nice. But the problem for me of printing directly from Maker World is how do you know the settings that Maker World has for the part is any good? You don't know it. And that can cause problems. As we've talked about before, you should never print somebody else's G-code. Because it is so easy to add malicious G-code. It is so easy to effectively remove any software limitations that your machine has. So, thermal runaway. And just set things to effectively hurt themselves. Now, have we seen a case of this? No, we haven't. But it's not impossible. And it's why I don't want people printing from G-code. But unfortunately, I do believe the value to the consumer is I don't have to learn the software. And I wish that consumers would learn the software because the slicers have gotten so good this year, right? Prusa Slicer, Bamboo Studio, which is Prusa Slicer with some extra herbs and spices on it. And then Orca Slicer, which is my preference. If I had to choose between Bamboo and Orca, I'm choosing Orca because I can run it in stealth mode. Those are all based on Slick 3R or Slicer, right? Cura has shown a lot of improvement as well, but I do believe that Prusa Slicer, and I'm just going to go with the umbrella of Prusa Slicer being that Bamboo is based off of it, as is Orca. I think I do think more people are moving toward the Prusa Slicer variants. And yeah, we use Orca. In fact, it's open on my machine right now. I do really like Orca Slicer. And while, yes, as Geek Toy Box says, Printables does scan for G-code safety, with more machines changing the way that they look at G-code, right? Different commands mean different things for different printers. That can be a problem with how that G-code gets scanned. There's always a risk. As Alan B says, there's always a risk with scanning G-code. You can miss things. And I'll have to reach out to Mikolas to see if they have caught any malicious G-code. Because it's this weird line between, is it deliberately malicious or do they just slice it poorly, right? I don't know. But it's funny because I do believe that we're going to see a big push in slicers as Prusa Slicer continues to get a lot of updates, right? Prusa has their own development division for Prusa Slicer, right? Staff that all they do is code. I think we're going to see a lot of more value come out of Prusa Slicer, and I would hope that we can work toward a little bit of a closer movement into a CAD package built right into it. I think it'd be cool. Chris Catlett says that Clipper has safety functions that cannot be bypassed by G-code. Good. Mensch says, I want more companies to go into more new things, like more axes, non-planar, instead of just faster printers. But that's probably not going to happen because money. Non-planar printing actually doesn't require different machines. It just requires different code. It requires slicing differently. Right? And it requires thinking about slicing differently when it comes to support material and all of that. I don't know if we're going to see a big push for non-planar. I think the non-planar side of things is going to be very, still on the top end of the niche spectrum. As for more axes like IDEX machines, I don't know if consumers have a value to do that. I think the average consumer is fine with an MMU, AMS, whatever the hell it allows, right? I think that's where the consumer wants. They want multicolor. The consumer doesn't really care too much about multi-material. They just want multicolor. And while, yes, AMS-style machines or MMU-style machines can do multi-material, they're not very good. They're just not very good when it comes to, like, waste and that kind of thing. Matt German says a friend of his used to decode. It was designed for G-Tech 30 Pro with a Fucus printer. And he wondered, he used G-code that was designed for a different printer on his printer, and he was wondering why I kept making crazy noises. Yeah, because you used the wrong G-code. Yeah, you do have to be careful with that kind of thing. Allison says, to me, using the software has meant that I can change my support settings, and that in itself can be the difference between a great print that you can remove the support from or can't. Yeah. Yeah. And in fact, Allison, the same Allison you see in the chat, was in Print Fix Friday, this most recent Print Fix Friday, episode 120, I think. She's awesome. Allison is freaking awesome. Just got her second printer, too. It's starting. Mark Rouleau, I'm hoping that's right, Rouleau, says, no way on the CAD package into Slicer. Stop bloating the software. If Prusa wants to make a CAD package, have it be separate. I don't necessarily disagree with you. I think we should have some basic functionality. Like, the basic functionality that we have right now is good. But certainly, if Prusa made their own CAD package, that'd be great. But I would sincerely doubt that it would be free. Software development is expensive, and it's things that people don't think of when they look at Prusa Slicer and the amount of time, effort, and energy that goes into it that Prusa pays for themselves, right? It's a loss. Prusa Slicer does not make profit. It is a loss. And in fact, they give away everything that they do because of open source. So it is a multi-slated loss. But without good software, the hardware is useless. We talked about this. When I looked at my RevoPoint Mini, its software was so bad, the scanner itself became useless to me. Now it's gotten better. But I have an Artex Spider now. So that's what I'm going to use. I do want to check it out, though, compare those two. That'd be a fun stream. I'll have to look at that at some point. But yeah, there's a lot of expense in building good software. And I worry that unless we get more Orca Slicer-like slicers out there that are community-driven, that the companies that are making the printers are just going to keep making crappy versions of whatever slicer they want, whether it's Cura or something like that. I hope that changes, but yeah, I really don't see that changing anytime soon. Moving into DRM. As much as I don't want it, I think DRM is coming. I think in 2024, we are going to see more DRM. And that concerns me. We moved away from DRM. In fact, we've talked about it, like the XYZ DaVincis. A lot of those had DRM. I think we're going to be moving back toward it. As consumers want more reliability, DRM is one way to kind of control said liability. And, DRM is a good way to control said reliability. But it is also a good way for companies to make a ton of money. So, Mensch is asking, what is DRM? It's digital rights management. So chipped filament that only works with certain machines, special G-code files that aren't readable by regular, like it's encrypted G-code files and that kind of thing. And machines that have subscriptions. Because, well, look at how the 2D printer market moved, right? We had expensive things that only like hardcore fanboys and, businesses had. Now we're moving into it's really, really cheap and you can get it and they become throwaway items, basically. What was the next thing that we saw in 2D printing? We saw the lockdown of the ink and the ink get expensive. And it was only when we unlocked the ink and we just told companies, we're going to break your encryption, whether you like it or not, so consumers can use their own cheaper inks, That was when the industry started moving in a different direction. We're moving into companies providing chips in their filament. Prusa has chips in their filament. Prusa has the chip in Prusa filament is not actually for DRM, from what I'm told. It's for tracking. It's an RFID chip, and they use it for tracking the spools throughout the warehouse. That's what I'm told. But grain of salt that, because that was not directly from Prusa. But they do have that QR code. That is traceability. Bamboo filament has the ability to be DRM locked, right? They have that RFID chip. The machines recognize that RFID chip. And guess what? Consumers really like that. So they don't have to go through and choose what color or what material, because the machine does it for them. Like it or not, DRM actually has some value to the average consumer. But it only has value if the materials that come with DRM are better than the ones that don't. Now, whatever 11 herbs and spices Bamboo puts into their filament, it does allow them to print much faster than any other filament that I'm aware of on the market, period. But when we look at closing that ecosystem, that bubble, if you will, of a company, it gives the company more ability to make profit. And as we've seen in the professional 3D printing industry, they don't make their money on the machine sales. In fact, the machines are often sometimes sold at a loss. They make their money on the materials, on the maintenance. They make their money on the materials and the maintenance. Case in point, my big full color printer. It is $69,000, nice, $500. All in, delivered to your door, they're about $86,000 and change, with enough materials to fill the machine. Enough materials to fill that machine is worth about a month. It's worth about a month. The powder, because it's a powder printer, is $30 to $40 a pound, depending on how you buy it, like how much bulk you buy it in. That powder is like 80% gypsum. And then there's some anti-caking agents and stuff in it. The ink is 28 cents a milliliter. And it is chipped. It is not only chipped, but the bags. So it uses a cartridge system. I'll have to go get the cartridges at some point, but it uses a cartridge system. And that cartridge system has a chip in it, and it knows what's in there. Thankfully, it doesn't count the milliliters in the bottle, so you can refill the bottles. We spent about 4 years working with a company that made laser mass spectrometers to crack the code for the ink. And we actually found that the company that we were buying all the ink from, the manufacturer, like OEM, they had a delta north of 10, which when you're doing full color 3D printing of people, a delta above 1 is a problem. Hell, a delta of 1 is a problem. So we reverse engineered it and made our own ink. And now I'm able to produce ink in small batch quantities for like a nickel a milliliter. Save myself a ton of money. But the manufacturer of the full color machine doesn't make their money on the machines. They make their money on the materials. And well, when you can bring that entire bubble, your company has more money in it. You're not just selling a ton of printers, right? Well, I'm going to continue to use Bamboo as an example because they do have DRM controlled filament. They just don't currently lock their machines. As far as I'm aware, the ability exists because if you can read it, you can lock it, right? But I'm not 100% aware if that is functionally possible. I assume that it is, and it could just be a software thing, but I'm not 100% sure. So let's just use Bamboo because they do have RFID and NFC filaments. I think it's NFC. Not certain. Now I got to go open a spool and find out. It's NFC or RFID. It is a DRM chip. If Bamboo was able to produce a machine that was not open to filament and it would only use Bamboo filament, they could sell the machine at a loss and make their money and make a lot more money on filament. Now, Bamboo makes good filament from all that we can tell. The stuff works. Never had any issues with it. But currently, and Zach Friedman showed this, the encryption on the NFC tags for the Bamboo is so high that no one has broken it yet. So you can't just make your own or, recode it. Thankfully, so far, those NFC chips just tell the machine what the spool is, what color it is, so the material and the color, which is actually, from a consumer standpoint, very useful. They have this new filament subscription model that gives you, for X amount of money a month, you get X amount off of filament. You get X amount of filament that comes in every month. I think those are really great plans for consumers. Bamboo is B2C. In fact, their director of the Europe side said, Grant, you are not the customer of Bamboo. Bamboo wants consumers. You are a business. You are not Bamboo's customer. I said, well, then don't make a machine that everyone quite literally will send so much hate about when they disagree with it that it causes people to have problems, we'll say. And we kind of laughed about it. We said, yeah, that's what happens when you make a machine that basically gets into a lot of businesses. You get businesses that want business level support. So I think Bamboo currently has it right, the way that their DRM works, because they're not locking you out of anything else. Their DRM just makes using their material easier. And that's awesome. That's what we want to see. But any company could put DRM similar to what XYZ did, where you cannot use you can't use anything but their filament, you can't use anything but their slicer on anything but their machine. That is a problem. Consumers might not see it as a problem, especially if it gets updated and it's useful. I, however, see it as a problem because it means that we move away from you being able to choose what you buy and how you buy it. So what does that mean for the average consumer? Well, we might see machines coming out with lower price points that still have all the value, but get locked into using a company's branded materials. Now, if that company happens to keep the materials at a reasonable price, it's no big deal. But they can arbitrarily raise the price and you either pay it or you have a brick. Will that mean that the average consumer would not buy DRM? No, I think they would. I think the average consumer will take a cut on the price and accept the DRM. But do I believe that companies would arbitrarily raise their price of their materials because they could? I don't know that. And as Duff says, DRM has been around in industrial machines for decades, right? You cannot use a Stratasys printer with Polymaker filament. Like, it's so DRM controlled, they have counters on them, so you can't even re-spool it. Now, the Stratasys encryption has been cracked for years, and in fact, there are companies that exist solely for you to send in your filament containers, and they're like metal containers. They will reset the chips, re-spool filament, and send it back to you. And the funny thing is with Stratasys, you don't actually use all the filament on the spool. It uses X amount. Because I don't know how well that they're actually tracking how much filament goes on the spools, and they do it by weight. Well, the RFID tracker does it based on feeding, how much material has been fed. And when you hit a certain cubic inch or cubic centimeter pushed, that's it. Spool's empty. And for like $80 a kilo, $100, $6,000 a kilo material, that's a really big problem. Like a really, really big problem when you're spending a ton of money on hardcore materials. If you can't get every dime of it, that's a problem. Does that matter for businesses? No, they generally don't care. The reason that they don't care is because they are making enough money on it that they don't need to care. That's the fun part. Can a company, if they're going to do DRM, can they do DRM in a way that either the extra cost and or the extra headache is not enough that the average person will care? If a company can figure that out, then they're set. They're set, and they have no worries at all. At least in my opinion. So 3D printers as a commodity and an appliance. This is 100% Bamboo's fault. I want to be clear. It's 100% Bamboo's fault. And it's a good thing. We're moving toward commodity-based 3D printers. If we haven't already gotten there, 2024 will be a year where we see that happen. I think. We are going to see more 3D printers hit households. We're going to see more 3D printers be tools. Bamboo did something that no other company has done that I can think of in this industry. When they started sending printers to people, they sent them to people that aren't just in the 3D printing industry. They sent them to woodworkers. They sent them to crafters. They sent them to industry adjacent hobbies that might see a value in 3D printing. That is one of the most brilliant marketing campaigns I've ever seen as far as this industry goes. Why? Because they know that a positive review from one of these big industry people will sell enough machines that it's an easy sell to just push a free machine to anybody that has X amount of subscribers and is in X amount of industry. And that's great. But it does mean that we're moving toward commodity-based 3D printing. I am worried about machines becoming disposable. To me, resin printers are already disposable. The amount of effort that it takes to replace a screen on a resin printer, to me, is not worth actually keeping the resin printer. I will give it away to someone that wants to do the work, and they can get a resin printer for pennies on the dollar. I do not want to do that effort. Because for the amount of time that opportunity is, like that opportunity cost to change out the screen, I can go buy another $200, $300, $400 resin printer, get back up and running way faster, and not have to worry about it. We are moving more toward commodity 3D printing. It scares me a little bit because I think it means we're going to see the death of a lot of 3D printing shops. Right? Shops that specialize in 3D printing. Because why would you go to a shop when you could easily just do it yourself? It is getting more and more common that people come to us with projects, and I can tell that they're a little bit crafty themselves, and I'll say, you don't want to pay me. I mean, I'm happy to do the work. You don't want to pay me. What you want to do is buy a printer. Here are some of my top recommended printers, and most of these are under what I would charge you to make this product. And at what point does it matter that they don't want to do the work themselves if the machines are so easy to use that it is just put model into phone, click go on phone, printer make part? We are getting to that point. And while it might mean that shops like ours have to start doing more high-end materials like PPSU, PPS, Ultem, Peak, and PEC, it also means that we will probably be moving away from consumer and prosumer grade machines and looking more into light industrial machines, things that the average consumer can't do versus things that the average consumer wants to do. So that's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. But it's also a little scary because the average consumer has no clue what they're doing. And that's okay. It's why we talk about that education needs to get better, or this industry will turn into commodity only. If we can't educate people on how to run their machines, and they're going to rely on a software from a company to do it, a DRM software, mind you, that could potentially have a subscription model if you're not careful, that will be potentially dangerous. Now, the fun thing is about this industry, when it feels wronged, boy, it feels wronged. When the XYZ Da Vinci, when the filament went up in price, and it went up a lot in price, the industry said, yeah, no, dog, that's not going to work for us. And people cracked the encryption and showed you how to reset your spools and re-spool them. Great. It's one less thing you got to worry about. Of course, it pissed off the company, as it will. But that's what people do. If they feel wronged, they're going to find a way around it. Some of them are just worse about it than others. I would like to see commodity printers to an extent, because I think it pushes the education. I believe that printers. Zerno's asking. Sorry, I'm gonna get sidetracked here. Zerno's asking, is XYZ printing still in business? They are. Not only are they still in business, they were just bought out by Nexa 3D. Apparently, XYZ had gone dark for a while because they were working on an SLS system, and Nexa just bought them last I checked. It might have been Velo, but I'm fairly certain it was Nexa. I think it was Nexa that bought them. But yes, they are still in business, which is stupid cool. We are going to see a lot of companies just cloning bamboo. We're going to see a lot of companies cloning bamboo. But I worry that a lot of these companies that are going to be cloning bamboo are not going to have kind of that ecosystem that bamboo has. And people are going to buy these other companies because they're going to be cheaper than bamboo. They're going to have a bad experience with this commodity 3D printer, and they're going to write off the industry as a whole. And if we don't increase our education, if we don't make it easier for people to understand how to do things, then we are doomed to ever see this industry grow to a point where the average person understands what 3D printing is. This is a bit of a fun one. I don't know if I told the story. We were in the V&A Museum in London, because we spent a couple of days after Smurf went around, and I wanted to go see the Thing-O-Matic that was in there, because it's an important piece. Unfortunately, we missed the Darwin that was in the Science Museum, but we didn't have a lot of time in the Science Museum. And right when we were walking away, two people came up, and they said, "How this is one of those 3D printers? I just don't understand how it makes things." And Amber was like pulling at me saying, no, we have other things to do today. You are not to engage. Because I was ready, willing, and able to educate those people. But were they willing, ready, and able to be educated? See, a desire for knowledge does not mean that you will actively seek it. And if people are not actively seeking that knowledge, then they're going to rely on a company to provide that knowledge in a user interface, whether it's whether it's an app, whether it's a bit of software for your computer, whether it's something for your phone. They're going to rely on the company to do that. And as we've already seen with Bamboo's Maker World, you can't print directly to your Bamboo from any other site other than Maker World. So if what you want isn't on Maker World, you don't know how to design things, you don't know how to use the slicer, you are stuck with whatever tchotchke things that you can print off of Maker World. Is that a problem? I don't know. It might be. For some it is, for some it's not. But I believe that that lack of education is what might keep this industry from hitting the full-on commodity that 2D printers got to. Just my thought. Jay Vurick says, Grant, we can't take you anywhere. Yeah, that's fair. Especially when there's like people that are asking a question that I am literally perfectly designed to answer. It was just one of those funny things that we will always look back at and laugh at, because it probably would have been a multi-hour conversation if we had stuff to do that day. 3D Printing Junkie says, I have 8 3D printers, and all of them were made by them since 2013. And there are some of us who just like tinkering. I am working on a switch wire and ERCF that's Enraged Rabbit Carrot Feeder, that's the Voron MMU, instead of buying a bamboo. I like the challenge, and that's totally fine. You are not a consumer. You are a tinkerer. You are a power user. You might use an Android phone. I don't know, because Apple have gotten, their features are pretty good. But you might use an Android phone because you like being a power user. You are not Bamboo's clientele. You are not the average consumer. Set it up and print. Okay, says sorry, has an iPhone. Okay, well, hey. That's fine. I don't care. I won't hold it against you. Won't hold it against you. When we look at kind of everything, this industry is different. And this industry is not going to be going back to the way that it was. We have a community that is growing ever toxic, and they're all growing ever toxic, so I'm not just pointing at one. And it's because people feel some type of way about machines. I hope that these communities will wake up and understand that there is more to a hobby than their insane amount of fandom that goes to the point of sending things to people. Will that change with consumers? No. And I actually think that these toxic communities are going to drive consumers out of the industries more. And I'm worried that if we don't get a hold of it quickly, it's what we will be seeing as a problem long term. Every community has its problems. And the one that I can think of that like isn't 3D printing related, it's the models, like the model train industry, the Warhammer like tabletop gaming industries. Dude, they got some toxic people. And imagine like the model train industry, which is mostly retirees being crazy toxic. Imagine like your grandpa typing out hate on the internet, right? That, it's like we have to find a safe space for that. And God, I could do such a perfect segue into like promoting myself, but I'm going to keep myself from doing that right here, because like we do have a good community. But if the communities can't moderate themselves and get their act together, consumers are going to write off machinery because of the community that stands behind it. The amount of hate that I see when someone has a printer problem. Like, this is noob season, okay? We got the Christmas noobs, if you will. Right? That was always the joke for the Call of Duty days. Yeah, Christmas noobs, people that just got it for the holidays. Well, it's the same deal with 3D printing. And if your fandom goes to the point of you get angry when you're typing, step back, take a couple of breaths, and think about, would you say this to your own family? And if the answer is yes, maybe we should define what family looks like for you. But if the answer is no, let's go ahead and rewrite that to be a little bit nicer. If we continue a toxic environment, the newbies that join this industry will either immediately adopt the toxic environment or they're going to leave. And if they leave, they're going to tell people about it. Because remember, for every good experience that you have, that you talk about, you will probably talk about upwards of 20 bad experiences. How often do you talk about the great service you had at a restaurant versus the time that you went to a restaurant and the service was bad? Oh, I don't want to go there. The service was bad. Oh, I'd love to go there. They had amazing service. It is just a flip of how you look at things can really change the way that you as a consumer talk to other consumers. And if people start to get in your face and get angry, sometimes it's better to just throw your hands up and walk away. Because every community has this problem. Oh man, Troy J's right. Like bringing up Festool and woodworking forums. Oh my god, yes, Festool. The woodworkers in Festool. Or Power Tool guys. And how they feel about Ryobi. And how they feel about Milwaukee versus Makita versus DeWalt versus Rigid. Oh man, it gets heated. It gets hated. If we can all just try to be a little bit more welcoming to others, then we build a community that it itself is welcoming. And it not only grows, but it grows in an effective way that is safe for all parties involved. Like, while I am still technically in Facebook groups, I don't use Facebook. It's a cesspool of problems, and Reddit is getting to be the same way. I'm really only using Reddit these days because the 3D scanning community is still pretty small and good, and I buy all of my cameras used from Reddit or eBay or your poison of secondhand stores because I'm not going to pay a premium to buy a brand new camera. I will buy it after someone has used it for a little bit. And no, it's not just the 3D printing groups. Every group has these problems. But if we can start working on this together, man, we can really make a difference. We can make a big difference. Troy J asked a while up, did I consider having a hobbyist / power user category to your printer review video? I think it was a live stream, so I can't. We probably should have. That would have been smart. Oh, well. Mistakes were made. Oh, God. If I wanted to do, a hobbyist / power user, man, that's a fight between Prusa and Voron. It is. Right? It's a Prusa kit versus a Voron. And I think I will have to revisit that after we finish our Trident build. We officially started the Trident build in 2023. I said we were going to start our Trident build in 2023, and we did it. We started the Trident build in 2023. So, not this coming week, but the next week. What week is that? The week of the 10th, which is Amber's birthday. We'll be streaming that day to keep working on the Voron. Barely started, but technically started. And if I am technically correct, that is the best kind of correct, and I will stand by it. Never let the machines win, Mike says. Will I complete the Trident build in 2024? That is debatable. I don't know. We might have to start streaming more often to get it done in time. I don't know how long it's going to take me, but yeah. Anyways. I want to see the communities get better, because if the communities do get better, we become more welcoming to the newbies. And if all we are going to be gatekeepers that are not going to let newbies in because they don't know what they're doing, then we have a problem. So be kind to others. If you get personally attacked, just walk out of the conversation. There is no point in replying when someone is personally attacking you. And if you say, well, that means they win, let them win. Who gives a shit? Be kind. It goes a lot farther than you think. Troy Day says, I already squirrel-brained to build a heat press. In my defense, we're not going to be building one. We've decided against building a heat press. The reason we decided against building a heat press is I want my Voron experience to be as close to the average first-time user Voron experience, and that heat press is not first-time Voron experience. It's like the second time around when you realize you should have had one. And so I want to do it the way that I think the average first-timer would do. That's why I'm going to do it the way that I'm going to do it. So we are opting not to do a heat press this time. So, yeah. Yeah. I would really like to see more things happen. I want to see better software. I want to see better education. I want to see a lot. But I don't know how much of it is going to be ultimately realistic. I know for us, we're going to be pushing more project videos, right? Not like Ivan Miranda level of project videos, but we're going to be pushing more project videos. That is something that I want to do more of. We want to really only show things we're getting paid to show. Because guess what? This is a business. We almost hit 40,000 subscribers this year. We're obviously not going to hit it. We just hit 39,000 this morning. But I do want to push bigger, crazier videos. We are going to be doing an audio series. I don't know when. I'm hoping for like tail end of Q1 of 24. That I would love. Love to show off. I've been building an audio room for a little bit. We haven't done our sound treatment yet, and I still have to move some stuff out of the room. But there are some products that I want to do in that room, and based on what YouTube tells me, a lot of you like listening to music. So I'm going to show off the speakers that I've always wanted and had an opportunity to buy. I have a pair of Acoustat the Monitor 4s. They are massive electrostatic speakers from the 70s. They are in pristine shape. They're beautiful. And they've actually had quite a few upgrades. They've had Meridian upgrades, which is really nice. But the problem is the room that they're in is way too small for them and has no sound isolation. So we're going to build some. And we're going to see if we can do 3D printing for sound isolation, and I'm going to be setting up a microphone in that room. It's probably not going to be an amazing microphone to start, but we're hoping that we can convince a company to send us a really nice one. And we're going to see what we can do with 3D printing to make that room sound better. It's going to be fun. I want to do a vehicle project of some sort. Whether it's a go-kart to go after Matt Denton, because I really liked his Lego go-kart. We showed it off in our first Smurf video. Or, you know, something that makes more sense for Florida Man. I want to do something that kind of pushes the limits of what 3D printing can do. Because review videos can only get you so far. We're going to be pushing more into live streams. That's where we're going to be doing unboxings. When we do reviews of printers, like long-term reviews, it will be as part of another video. Thomas says, ask Hector for a card to modify. That would be hilarious. That would be funny as heck, though. That'd be really funny. I think that our content is going to be shifting. And it's fine. But it's really to push us to get more views, more subscribers, and ultimately for me to be able to take a paycheck from this whole thing that we call content. Our focus is going to be on using equipment, not showing it. It's going to be using it, right? You want to review a printer? Great. Let's build a project with it. John also says, I think you have expertise with scanners, videos showing scanners, CAD, 3D printing for various use cases. Not seeing much of that out there. Yeah. The problem with showing scanners is that projects that I have to come up with don't make me any money. And the scanning products that we do are not ones that I can normally film. So we'll figure something out. But yes, now that I have a lot of really nice scanners, I want to use scanning more often. But we still have this fun problem with scanning, and I think if somebody out there is a software dev and wants to work on something, you can make some decent money. A conversion system to go from an OBJ file, which is what most scanners will give you, to a step file, which is what most people need to do CAD. That's the kind of stuff that I want to see. That's the kind of stuff that I want to see. The only software to do that right now is about $10,000 a year. It's called Geomagix Design X. If someone could do it at $1,000 a year, I'd pay for it. Hell, probably $2,000 a year, I'd pay for it, because it would allow us to do better in scanning. And again, it's like one of those things that it could be better, but it's just not. Why? Who knows? Who knows? I want to see growth in this industry. I would love to see more growth in 3D scanning. But it might not. We will have to see software get better for the average consumer to adopt 3D scanning. Currently, 3D scanning is still for the people that want to build and tinker with 3D printers. It's not for those that want to scan their kid and then instantly print their kid. That's not how 3D scanners work. It is so much more effort than that. But with a lot of people having iPhones with the scanning stuff capable, we might see more companies integrating Polycam-esque style scanning into their ability to operate their printer. Bamboo, if you're listening, that would actually be one hell of a way to integrate MakerWorld. Prusa doesn't do that, where they don't print directly from printables. But Prusa, if you want to do that, you could. I'm still not going to use anybody's apps. So, there's that. Troy J is asking if scanning is more for organic models than mechanical ones. No. No, I don't think so. I mean, we scan a lot of mechanical stuff with 3D scanners. They're just a lot easier to reproduce. So what the process that we do for 3D scanning, because we don't have the crazy amount of money for the crazy expensive software, is we get the OBJ file, we throw it into Fusion 360, and then we just draw over it. And we draw all of our sketches. We do our extrudes and our cuts and all that. We do all of that the way that you would expect it to be done inside of Fusion 360. Because it works. Is it fast? No. But the amount of cost that we end up taking on because we do that versus using Geomagix is not worth it for us right now. It might be, but I would really like to see a community-driven software that does what I want instead. We will find more uses for our scanners for organic stuff anyways, because ultimately, if your product is really easy to design, like let's say, here, this is the receiver for our wireless microphones. I use a studio mic here. I don't use wireless mics, but here's one of the wireless mics. If I wanted to design a case for these, maybe like this one, where it slides in, has a mount in the back where I can use a threaded insert for 1/4-20, and so I can hold it onto our camera gear. I'm not going to scan this because this thing is so easy to model. I can just take a couple of dimensions, model it, and get it so it fits beautifully. There's no reason to scan that. But again, that comes down to the education side of it, where 3D scanning doesn't have the education around it, where you can't just scan something and instantly print it. In fact, the person with the M&M, they're like, well, why can't you just scan it? I said, one, because my scanners are way too expensive for this project. But two, it doesn't work like that. A scanner is not going to get a perfect representation. And if the S is actually inset from the M. If the S was actually on the surface of the M, I could flatbed scan it, like 2D scan it. But because you think weird in that regard. And as John Olson says, Alan Mandick did a video using a scanner to scan a car dashboard, then use it for his CAD work. Yeah. And what he also described is that it sucks. It is so much work. He's an Einstar, which I still think is one of my favorite scanners for the money right now. If you're willing to deal with the software not being amazing, it's not bad, but it's not Artec level software. But see, Artec software costs more per year than the Einstar cost, period. And you have to look at that and say, well, yeah, there's a thing there. And if you're into the car YouTubers, Cletus McFarlane just had one of his cars scanned with a Creaform scanner, which was interesting. I was expecting like not a very nice scanner to do it. And this company pulls out like a $45,000 Creaform scanner. I'm like, oh, hell yeah. This is good scanning. But if you watch that video, you saw that they had to put a bunch of targets all over the car that they scanned. I like scanners that don't require targets. Most of our scanners don't require targets. And that's my preference. You can lose some fidelity, but it means that I'm tracking the actual surface and not the dots. But Creaform has some of the best laser scanners on the market, which is cool. I do want to do more scanning content, but I think that we're going to be reaching out to the community more often to see what kind of things that you guys want. Since we're an hour and a half deep into the video, I will tell you what we're doing for April Fool's Day, because, you know, a lot of you won't remember anyways. We are going to 3D scan a McDonald's chicken nugget with my Artex Spider, a $25,000, 50 micron accurate 3D scanner. And we are going to 3D print it huge in silk gold filament. And we're going to print a Cuban chain in silk gold filament. And we're going to do a Flavor Flav joke episode, but we're going to call me Mick Flavor Flav. So that's going to be funny. And we're going to be talking about all the flavors of filament. Last year we did the essential oils. Yeah, our April Fool's video last year was essential oils. This year it's going to be 3D scanning and 3D printing a massive chicken nugget. Because this is the dumb crap that I do in my life. So. Because why not? Smoke them if you got. If you got a high-res scanner, blow up a chicken nugget to be huge, 3D printed, and make it all stupid gold. So, and the plan is, and I don't know how we're going to do it, but I want to do like some sort of like 3D printing award where we give out those... Yeah, McFlavor, McFilament or something. Oh, that would be so funny. Yeah, we're still obviously working on the details for it, like how that video looks. But the joke is going to be that we're going to laser scan or high-res scan a chicken nugget. Because this is where my life takes me at 30. Well, I'll be 34 at the time, but 33 now. Oh, what am I doing in my life? I am using a $25,000 scanner to scan a chicken nugget. But that's fine. Looking at the future of 3D printing, we have so much value that is possible. But it hinges on a couple of very important things. One of the big ones being all about education. We are going to move more into full-time content creation here and start moving away from doing small jobs. And we only kind of take the bigger jobs or jobs that we want to do as the company. So that gives me more time to do content. From there, that allows me to do bigger videos, but at the same time, be more of a part of the overall community. We are going to start doing live shows with a hotline where people can call in, because I believe that live 3D printing repair help might be a lot of fun. Jay Vorick says someone will remember what you said in April. That's totally fine because it's in our Discord, which you're a part of. It's under the projects. We've talked about it, of doing the chicken nugget. Actually, it was the Nocturnist who recommended that we 3D scan and enlarge a chicken nugget. So yeah, that's going to be fun. Yeah, Steve says brave man. Yeah, we're going to have a whole screening process. Don't worry. But the hope there is we can do, so like, some companies will do a repair day, and we're going to be doing repair days here locally. We want to help people live. I think it'd be a lot of fun. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but we're going to certainly try it in Q1. Maybe I take a break from Voron for a week and we do a live call-in session or something. I don't know. Where it's like a Discord. I don't know. Might be a phone number, might be Discord. I still got to figure that one out. That is still, working. James Kerbal says bring the chicken nugget to Rocky Mountain. Buddy, I'll be walking around with that thing like I'm Flavor Flav. Because we found a we found a parametric printable Cuban chain on printables, and I'm like, this is perfect. This is what I need. I need this. And being half Cuban, I think I'm allowed to wear it. But yeah, I have a lot of faith this industry is going to be awesome. It's going to be really awesome in 2024. But it requires a lot of us to make sure that when we are a part of the community, we are part of the solution and not the problem. It's going to require that we educate rather than providing answers, or educate while you are providing answers. We want people to learn at the same time that we want them to grow in this industry. Because if all they're doing is buying a printer, getting answers without learning, they're going to continue to make the same mistakes. And that's where people tend to get pissed off. Me personally, while it does upset me from time to time when consumers don't seek assistance and they just want the answer, I can provide the answer, but hide it inside of assistance. So if you want to read it, great. And if you don't want to read it, don't. You won't learn. Educating is still the biggest factor that we have to work on in this industry. Until you can go up to somebody and tell them you do 3D printing and they don't ask you what 3D printing is, we still have an education problem. It will take 3D printing being shown on major media in a way that isn't just because there's firearms related to it. It will take 3D printing having some sort of a related story that goes viral because it helps somebody. And that is that impetus for someone to start learning. I am really, really interested in seeing how the education game plays out, because without it, we will have a sincere gap in what people want this industry to be and what it actually can be. And that gap is not a good gap to have, because it means that you get phone calls or you get family members or friends or whomever that ask you for things that are unrealistic or expensive or something like that. Education is the big deal. And it's why we paygate our Discord server. It's why I ask people to like and subscribe, because that's how we get sponsors. But we paygate our Discord server. $10 tier or higher, available, links in the description. We do that because for those of you that aren't in it, you quite literally can get me one-on-one for multiple hours, if I'm not doing anything too crazy, to work with you through your problem. As Allison says, you educated me on troubleshooting rather than saying, I bet you've got filament stuck. Yeah. I brought you through that process. I knew that you had a cold end clog as soon as you said what it was. I'm like, oh, you have a Revo. Of course it's, or you have a V6. Of course it's a cold end clog because you didn't pull the filament out fast enough. But instead we took that opportunity to educate, so now you know what to look for. Because I remember my first time dealing with it, and it was a pain in the ass. Apparently, My Auto Essentials says they are researching heart valve replacement with 3D printed parts. My name is Grant, and it's Grant's Auto Essentials, so I said it's My Auto Essentials. I need a lot of auto parts, Grant. Just saying. They have actually already been in production of that. The big bio 3D printing stuff right now is pancreas to solve type 1 diabetes, which is super cool. Super, super cool. Also, we apparently don't have mods in here. Goodbye. The goal is to really be pushing bioprinting. And I don't know anybody that does bioprinting. And it's so upsetting to me. I don't have access to big bioprinters like that anymore. So it would be cool. I just have to find someone that will let me play with it. Troy J says, I think Joel Telling is really good at showing what the industry can do, like at Rapid and trade shows. Yeah, and David Tobin just hinted at they have a Mimaki full color 3D printer, which is super cool. And yeah, as Allison Ford says, you don't put oil in your car, let alone parts. If it's leaking, it still has oil. Look, I had to go. I literally, after we're done watching Strange Parts video, I'm going outside to change my oil today. Okay? Like, my car is set up, ready to get the oil changed. So, meh. But yeah, I believe that education, the teach a person to fish rather than give them the fish, has more value to it. We could give answers, and you could give answers, but it is better to train so that the next time they have that problem, they know what to do. And if the person sees somebody else have that same problem, they can now educate the same way that they were educated. We're going to see a lot of commodity machines come out. We're going to see a lot more, machines that are out of the box printing. We're still going to see a lot of high-speed printing, but I think 2024 will be the year of multi-color, multi-material printers. I think we're going to see a lot of that. Jay Vorick said, what, you mean you didn't change it yesterday? No, I had to rush out of the house to go to dinner. I had a last-minute invite to go out to dinner that was an hour away from where I live, and I was going to change my oil, but I didn't have time to do it, so I had to rush out. So, yeah. But, yeah, I think if we as a community work to prevent the hate, we work to move in the right direction, we work to deal with DRM as it comes out. If we do that, I think we move forward pretty well as an industry. I'd love to see more affordable scanners, but it probably won't happen. I'd love to see less DRM, but we're probably going to see more DRM. And I'd like to see less printers be all online, but I know we're going to see less of that. Bamboo has proven that it is a very successful thing to do because consumers don't care. No problem. Other companies will soon follow suit. Because guess what? This industry only has like 3 or 4 companies that are even innovating at all on the consumer side. And all the other ones are just copying the ones that are innovating. It makes me laugh about how clones get. But that's okay. Because you know what? It means that obviously somebody's doing something right. Right? Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, is it not? But that's it, guys. And besides, Steve Bills is about to go live. I have linked Steve Build's latest live stream in the chat. So as we wrap up, you should go over and check out Steve Build's latest live stream. It is in the description down below. Put that person in timeout. Yeah, it is in the description down below. Go check out Steve Build's latest live stream. I guess there's like a way to do a raid. I don't know how to do it. How can I do a YouTube raid? Does anybody know how to do a YouTube raid? Because if so, I am raiding over to Steve Build's right now. Otherwise, I have no idea how to do it, and I just have to tell you guys to go there. Anyways, this is it. This is the last video for 3D Musketeers in 2023. Leave a like, get subscribed, stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And, as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one. Also, go check out Steve Build's channel. Like, subscribe to me. Like, subscribe to him. Help other people. Support other people. Be good to others.